Welcome everybody, and thank you all for taking your time out of your day to join us for our live event. My name is Mark Hudson, CEO of Squirrel 365, and today I'm joined by my colleague Donald MacCormick, our Chief Strategy Officer. At the moment, all attendees are in listen-only mode. We're streaming on LinkedIn Live, and we're also here on the Zoom webinar. We're also recording this live event, and it will be available to you later today. We'll have a Q&A session at the end of the presentation, and I also encourage you all to use the Q&A and chat panels during the session, both within the Zoom webinar or if you're watching on LinkedIn Live on the LinkedIn Live panel, as we'll be able to collect questions for later or even respond directly in the chat. So let's get started. Launched in 1987 and originally called Presenter, PowerPoint has become ubiquitous within business and has over 500 million users worldwide. Many of these users also use Excel extensively in their day-to-day work. Approximately 35 million PowerPoint presentations are given every day, this being just one of them, with over 400 started every second. Research shows that most people tune out of a presentation within the first 10 minutes. So how do you ensure you engage your audience so you can get across all your points? Well, enter Squirrel 365 Presenter. By harnessing your Excel and PowerPoint skills, it allows you to easily deliver engaging and dynamic presentations that will wow and engage your audience. In fact, it will change the way you think about PowerPoint presentations forever. So let's see why. Donald, over to you.
Thank you, Mark, and welcome everyone to today's webinar. As Mark said, it's all about taking spreadsheet capability, inserting it into PowerPoint to make sort of dynamic presentations, the like of which you've never seen before. So really what this is all about is building dynamic presentations from spreadsheets that grab attention, keep attention, and help you to stand out from the crowd. And how are we going to do this? Well, we're going to do this using only spreadsheets and Squirrel 365. No special skills required, no design knowledge required. You can just take existing spreadsheets or ones that you create for the purpose, pull them into Squirrel 365 and output the content, what your creations into PowerPoint to do the sort of things that will really grab people's attention at the start, keep their attention when you're delivering your business content and allowing you to stand as a presenter, to stand out from the crowd, whether that's against your peers, against your competitors, or just in customer situations where you want to wow them. So first, we're going to look at grabbing attention. So how might you do this? And in presentations that I've done over the years, I always try and start with something which is maybe a little out of the ordinary, just to get people sitting up and paying attention to start with. And even more so, this is required in these days of social media, people on Twitter on their phones in the audience. You got to do something which grabs attention. And Squirrel is perfect for creating those slightly offbeat pieces of content that allow you to do that. So, for example, one of the best presenters I know is an evangelist at SAP, a chap called Timo Elliott. And Timo created this PowerPoint overload calculator. He did it years ago using a very manual and sort of coding method, but this is the Squirrel version created by it's created by in Squirrel. And what you can do is you can start to sort of say, well, how many presentations are there in this conference, and how many slides per presentation, and how many participants? And when you start to move up and say, well, actually there are more slides per presentation, the chap sort of his face sort of goes, oh no, and so it changes around. Again, not designed to be sort of accurate or to really get any point across, other than just to have something to break the ice, so people can sort of warm to you as you start your presentation. So perhaps you want to use Timo's overload calculator, or maybe just put a clock up. Have you ever seen a PowerPoint presentation with a dynamic, time-accurate clock on it? Probably not. You could just put this up your presentation. Before you start, I guarantee people will be saying, "Oh, I wonder how they do that. I wonder what's going on there. How do you get something animated like that in PowerPoint?" We can change this even. So maybe I want an old clock hands, old clock face, and no second hand. So these are, not only can they grab attention, but they can be customizable inside PowerPoint. Remember, everything I'm doing here is inside PowerPoint. My favorite one of all time, and I used to do this just with a straightforward image in PowerPoint, but the dynamic nature that Squirrel allows you to do really brings it to life. So it's my favorite all-time optical illusion, because would you believe, and notice this is a Squirrel project, so I can click on things and make things happen. So I click here and it says, look, these two colors these two squares rather are the same color. Now you may not believe that to be the case, but it is the case. That gray and that gray are the same shade of gray. However hard you look at it, you will never get your brain to believe that, but it is the case. And we can show this by taking this tile and moving it around. So I can move it up to there or down to there. Look, so I move it up, and I promise you I am not changing the color of that tile as I move it. So as I go up and down, it's just moving around. Now, it's even more, it sort of looks a little even weird if I turn this into a dot, because it sort of looks like the dot sort of like fades away in between. But again, that dot is not changing color at all. And in fact, I can show lines which actually draw, so you can see that those are actually the same color top to bottom. There's nothing funny going on in the presentation. All the funny stuff is happening between your eyes and your brain, as your brain compensates for what it thinks is a shadow. And so these two are actually the same. Again, interactive content bound to get people sitting up and taking notice. And the final sort of one is halfway between. So these are all sort of, obviously, they're not mainstream for business content. They're just for grabbing people's attention. But one that I quite like here, which is the ability to put a timer into PowerPoint. Now, this could allow you to retake control of your presentations, maybe your Zoom presentations in the current climate, where you can say, actually, when you're breaking your meeting up into different sessions, you might want to say, well, and what you typically say, all right, everybody look at your watches, come back in 20 minutes. No one looks at the time, and so nobody knows when to come back, so you lose control of the whole thing. What you can do here is actually in PowerPoint, have a countdown that says, come back in 3, 2, 1, right, you're due back now. Now, obviously, 7 seconds is probably not long enough for a break, so you can put, I can change the title here and then say, maybe I'm going to say I want that to be 1 minute and 2 seconds there instead. So I reset that to 1 minute and 2 seconds, and now I start, and it counts down 1 second, 2 seconds, 59 seconds, and off we go. And they get a nice sort of little indicator of how much of the break is left. So maybe that is partly an icebreaker, partly getting people's attention, but also something useful that you could use between sessions to help people know when they're supposed to come back. And as I say, keep control of your meeting, your workshop, or your Zoom presentation. So those are ways you can use Squirrel to grab attention. But actually, the reason for grabbing attention is so then you can deliver your content, your business content. And so often, our business content comes from spreadsheets. And what we can do with Squirrel is to keep people's attention, because you can use Squirrel to present your spreadsheets as you have never seen them before. And remember that essentially everything we've seen so far in Squirrel is some representation of a spreadsheet. I mean, clocks and timers and optical illusions don't seem to be from a spreadsheet, but trust me, they are, and we'll look at exactly how that happens a bit later on. But some more normal spreadsheets, perhaps you've got just some sales figures you want to communicate. Now, yes, you could put these on 4 slides, or actually 8 slides. I've got west here, I've got south, I've got west, south, east, north. I've got tables and charts, so I can sort of charts for north and east. So I could have 8 slides here in a linear flow that I go from, I look at north, south, east, west, and then charts north, south, east, west. But then if somebody said, oh, could you just go back to the tables for west? Well, here I can do that, tables for west, in 2 clicks. Whereas if I was in the linear flow, where I have to go backwards and forwards, and it gets a bit tedious. And not only that, but again, people will sit up when they see this. They won't have seen this before. Interactive content sitting inside your presentation, so it keeps people's attention on the things that are happening, and allows you to break the linear flow of the presentation and be able to flick back and forward between numbers as people ask. Which again, interaction with the audience, a key feature in trying to keep people's attention and keep them engaged on you and your content, rather than drifting off to think about what they're going to have for lunch or what's happening on Twitter. But getting slightly more sort of visual about it, we could have maybe a what if calculator. So again, you've got some numbers. I've got a model that tells how my growth assumptions affect everything that's going on here. So if I say my sales expenses go up, then I click on here and we see what happens to not only the revenue or the net income over time, but what happens to each of my indicators. If I take G&A, that does something different down here, or returns is a much higher level a higher level thing at the top there, so it only affects the top half of the chart. I can maybe switch this into table mode so that those people who like to see the numbers can see numbers. You can see all those changing when I do there. Again, really engaging visual content, but with a point, talking about what it is that's happening in the business. Again, I can maybe change this to just sort of I can change the title to "What If," and maybe make the things crimson and then show the numbers on here as well. So I can do little things to make it different every time I present it. But again, you can see that this really sort of stands out as a piece of content that people will. And again, this is all coming from a spreadsheet. As we'll see in a minute, this is just running numbers from your spreadsheet. So you could either have your spreadsheet up here, and to communicate this in a PowerPoint, yes, you could flip out to Excel and start typing numbers, but then you really are going to lose people. Or you could have 10 or 15 different snapshots of your spreadsheet data in your PowerPoint, and that would also lose people. Here you've got dynamic, you've got quick to access, you've got interactivity, you've got flicking between views of tables and the sliders. So you've got a lot here going on to really engage, really keep people's attention, but also at the same time communicate the business message. And then finally, the most sophisticated one we've got here, and the one we're going to major on when we look at how we build these. Here's a SaaS revenue growth calculator. So this is all about if you advertise online, what's your budget, and then what's your ad click cost. So of that budget, for if they're 3, how many do you get out of that? What's the conversion rate when you come down? Your net promoter score affects how many customers will refer people. What's your monthly churn at which you lose customers? The conversion rate for paid trials, the conversion rate for non-paid trials, and then your monthly subscription. And all of these, you can have a conversation with your audience now. You can either sort of have some highlights you want to pull out and say, yeah, the growth currently looks good, but it's sensitive to churn. So show them it's sensitive to churn by saying, well, look, if I do this and I go up here, it starts to really drop off. And certainly if I move the referral rate down, then we can see that the churn really starts to pull sort of us down in year 2. And all the time you see we're coming here, and we've got, as we come down here, and if we maybe take the trial rate down, we come down, and so you're making different assumptions and showing them what's going on in all of their numbers. And you notice when you go too far, the indicators here have gone orange, so your revenue growth has dropped below target. So again, a lot going on, but in a way that really engages an audience rather than just trying to show them some numbers floating. I mean, typically you would either be showing them a spreadsheet here, which is not great, or you'll be having a series of bullet points that said, yes, when this happens, this happens, and when this happens, this happens. Again, not great for really getting people inspired and engaged and listening and sort of remembering your presentation, and afterwards going to other people and say, did you see what they did there? That was just quite remarkable. So it allows you to grab attention, keep attention, and stand out from as Mark said, the 400,000 other presentations that are being started every minute of every day, or whatever the number was. So how is this done? I've made this bold statement that you can do this all with a spreadsheet and Squirrel and clicks, not code. And that's why you do it. You do it with spreadsheets and clicks with no code. I mean, we saw back at the beginning, Timo Elliott's PowerPoint calculator. He has a version of that he did using a JavaScript library called D3, which you could probably spend 2 or 3 days learning how to use. There are lots of online courses that take many hours to complete. Plus, he's got about 400 lines of code in JavaScript. But in Squirrel, you can do it all just based on logic in a spreadsheet, clicking and designing by dropping components onto a canvas. So how does that work? Well, it works by starting in the Squirrel 365 Designer. So this is the Squirrel 365 Designer. You have a canvas onto which we're going to drop components, and you have a spreadsheet into which you can either type and sort of create your spreadsheet, or what I'm actually going to do to start with is to import a spreadsheet. And what I'm going to do is to build a portion of that SaaS revenue calculator from scratch using just this spreadsheet. Now, this is an ordinary spreadsheet, the like of which you probably have lying around on your hard drive and in the cloud and all over the place. It's a revenue model that goes out for 24 months, very standard sort of Excel for all these it's totally standard Excel formulas, and it's got a sort of, as it's got the 24 months, it's got a table here of an annual summary, and at the top it's got some key performance indicators, which are just sums over the 2 years and divided to get the growth and the retention rate. I say it's absolutely nuts and bolts, straightforward Excel modeling. And then on my factors page, I have all those factors that you saw that change that. So if I was to change this number to 20, that would feed through all these assumptions and make that all move up there. So I can't stress this enough. This is a normal, there's nothing unusual about this spreadsheet. I've just written, as you saw here, when I imported it in from an XLSX. I could open that in Excel, I would see exactly the same thing. It's just an ordinary Excel file. You could have exported it from Google Sheets. There's nothing funny going on here. But what I want to do is I want to visualize this. So I come in and I take a chart, and I'm going to take a column chart. And so I want to and the way that I get this to represent the data in the spreadsheet is I just wire it up. So for example, I want the chart title to come from this revenue growth. I just say, well, take it from the spreadsheet. So it's got the revenue model. I don't want a subtitle because I just want the top. Actually, maybe I'll make that title in the middle. So you can see clicking and binding it to values in the connecting it to values in the spreadsheet, and then just point and click to make it the way that I want it to be is the way in which you get these to come to life, get your spreadsheets to come to life. I want the bars to auto size, so it knows how to size them. And then I'm going to put some data in here. And so I'm going to bind to a particular series, and that series, the first one, actually, I'm going to make my series name to be recurring revenue, so I know what I'm doing. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the values are just going to be this recurring revenue over 24 months. So I just select those cells, and hey presto, I've now got a sort of a chart of those. I've still got no categories down there, so I'll put my categories on here, and they're going to come from the, if I come here, I'm going to come from my months. So they're the 24 months up to December 22. Now they're a bit sort of clashing into each other. So if I close data, I come down to my x-axis, and I can say there that I want my to be 45 degrees so I can see them. I don't want this x-axis title, so I just turn that off. And in fact, I'm going to do the same for the y-axis. So I don't want the y-axis title. So I've got there. So I've now got my chart. And the interesting thing, as we'll see, and a very important thing, is that this is dynamically attached to the spreadsheet. So it hasn't read out these numbers and said, well, I'm just going to do a chart like that, like you would if you sort of copy and pasted a sort of an image into PowerPoint. So if I come in here and say, I'm going to put 20% in there, then that changes. When I do that, that's changed. Look at my churn is falling off. So it was growing because churn was only 10%. But if I now put it back to 10%, you can see that it goes up. So it's intimately tied to the calculations and data in the spreadsheet. And so I can go one step further now and say, well, I'm going to take a slider. And that slider is going to be, I'm going to say that it's a percentage value, and I'm going to connect it to this one here, to monthly churn, like that. And I'm going to say, actually, I don't want the min and max because I know it's 0 to 100. So I've got something that will slide that. I'm just then going to copy and paste that. So it's Control C, Control V, and have a second one. And this one is going to now rebind to the referral conversion rate. So that's all I need to do for that. And what I might also do here is put a piece of text on there, and that text is going to be again bound to the spreadsheet, and that's going to tell me that that's monthly churn. And then I can have another piece of text down here. So you can see how easy it is just to add components, connect them to data in the spreadsheet, and off I go. So I make that a bit bigger so it doesn't wrap. So there we go. So I mean, actually, probably what I ought to do with these is to select them all up and make them all aligned to the side. And actually, we can do these to just pull them to the side so it just looks nicer. Again, see, it's just point and click, very easy to do. So now I've got the starting point for that SAS calculator you saw. So if I now run this in preview, what we'll see is that I can now change that monthly churn. And when I do, it sort of has a dramatic effect on my there. But if I make my referral rate go up, then I can get exponential growth. So you can see what's happening in them all. Now, the interesting thing, I say you can see what's going on. Obviously, this is what the end user would see. They can't see any of the calculations in the spreadsheet. It's just the visuals that they get. But if I want to look at what's going on so I can understand the relationship between numbers in here and come to my main model, you'll notice that I see all these numbers here, and I can change my monthly churn. And when I do that, I can see inside the spreadsheet. You look at the spreadsheet, you can see all those numbers changing. It really is changing. This is inserting that number into this cell here, the monthly churn, which is now 50%, and then that's recalculating the model, and then that's recalculating all these numbers down to the bottom one, which is my recurring revenue, which is in the charts. It's all dynamically interactive, and all I've had to do is just point and say, oh, this data here goes in this component, this data goes in that component. Hey presto, it's all done. But I can go much further than that, as you saw, for example, in the one that with the completed one that we saw. If I move these down here, I had KPIs which change color. So as I said in my spreadsheet here, I've got some KPIs. If I just go to the top here, I've got these KPIs: year-on-year revenue growth and annual retention rate. Well, I want to actually do something over and above the spreadsheet, so I'm just going to add another sheet here, and just actually I'll just leave it called sheet 3, and I'm going to say have a KPI tile. So I need some data from my KPI tile, and the first one is its value. So what am I going to show as its value? Actually, maybe say what's its text, and its text is just going to be a formula. And again, I'm just creating normal Excel formulas. So I say that equals this text, year-over-year growth, and then and classic Excel formula, a space, and again, and I want to combine that in there. So now if I say that, I've got year-over-year revenue growth. No, because it's taken that value as it would in Excel. So what I need to do now is to say, I want to use the Excel function text and format that as a percentage, like we do there. And sorry, I need to close my code. There we go. So now I've got the text I want. And again, because this is all in the model in Excel, that will then, when I change my monthly churn, that will change all the numbers in the spreadsheet. That will change this number in here. That will then change this formula in here, so it will reflect in my text. So for example, up here I go into my text and I say I want that text to be just this text here. And then I'm going to make it bigger. Again, just to make it bigger, I just sort of point and click to be able to do that. And so year-over-year revenue, the growth is like that. And I might make it the text color white and the background black just to make it stand out a bit more. So I can easily do that. Oh, just pull that there. So now I've got that there. Again, if I come and maybe go into debug to show you what's going on, if I look at my monthly churn, you can see that as I move this, the growth rate is changing as it drops off. Or if my rate goes up, my conversion rate up. And you can notice down here, it's changing in the spreadsheet. So again, it's doing all that recalculation. And then the final thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to say, well, I want a target for this. And that target is going to be 80%. And what I'm going to do is basically good is green and bad is red. So what I'm going to say is that the color for the KPI is going to be another formula, and it's equals if this number here, which is my the actual KPI itself, is less than the target, then I want it to be this color. I should have put red in that cell. I'll change that in a minute. And if it's not, I want it to be that color there. So it's currently, let me just put red in there and put bad there. Let's see what I've broken my formula. If I see, I didn't put the if in there. There we go. So if main model, so my KPI is less than target, red, otherwise green. And all I have to do now is take this number here and say, well, rather than use white, use that cell as the color. So now it's red because it's lower than that. But if I come into preview here, I up my conversion rate, you'll see at some point it changes to green, and it goes too low, it goes red and green. So I've got all that capability just built in. All I've done is point at things in my model, added some simple Excel formulas, and I'm off to the races. And with honestly just doing nothing more of what you've seen. So nothing more sophisticated or more complicated than anything you've seen there. I can come and get to the final thing, which is this one here, which just does exactly the same thing, only it has a table in there, smaller chart, 2 KPIs, and more of these, one with a slider, all exactly the same. Now, to get that into PowerPoint, all I do is I come and preview this, and then I publish to our cloud. So I publish out to the Squirrel Cloud. I give it a name and I say publish, one click publish. Now I'm not going to publish this because I've already published it because I needed it in my presentation earlier to show you. And so what we can do is go back to design and see where we would end up when we published it. So we would end up in this project manager here, and I can just having one click publish, I can then one click publish to PowerPoint. I can say share here. I'm going to share it to PowerPoint. click that, I've now got an ID that I can use in PowerPoint. If I come back to my PowerPoint presentation, there, I'm actually going to come out into here and get a new slide. So how do I get into PowerPoint? Well, there's an add-in, a Squirrel Presenter add-in in the Microsoft Store. So if I come in here, if I click on See All here and go to the store, then you can see that you can search for Squirrel like that, and then all you would have to do is say add. I want to add that. I've obviously already added mine here, so I can say I want to add the Squirrel content in here. So that brings up a box that I can paste that identifier that I just copied out of the project manager, and hey presto, I have something which a minute ago was in an Excel spreadsheet. It's now in my PowerPoint, and it is totally interactive. So if I come here and just make it the right size, I can do the same sort of thing. So it's a bit hard to see because it's small here, but I take churn and make churn go up, then you can see that my things go down. If I go churn down, I can do that. And of course, actually this hide slide is hidden, so if I unhide that slide, then if I say come in here and do Shift F5, there's my new content slide, and it's in my presentation, and I can do all of that. So easy to build, easy to publish, easy to embed in PowerPoint. So your spreadsheets as you've never seen them before, keeping people's attention, engaging them, making you stand out in terms of being a presenter that people will remember into the future. So actually that's how it's done. So you can turn ordinary spreadsheets into extraordinary content, embed them in PowerPoint to grab attention, keep attention, stand out from the crowd, all with clicks, not code. So if you want to take the next step, you can try it for yourself. The first thing you can do is maybe just use some of these examples. You like that optical illusion? Well, you could just use it. No purchase necessary. Just embed it in your PowerPoint presentation from our showcase, and off you go. Or if you want to create for yourself, get a trial at squirrel365.io, modify our examples, or create from scratch. And finally, you can create for your brand or your customers. So create something yourself that you want to go out into the world for people to see, to highlight your brand, or something that your customers or your prospects will benefit from. You create it in Squirrel, distribute it in PowerPoint so that they can use it themselves. So I'm going to stop there, and I will hand back to Mark, and we will answer any of the questions that have come in.
Fantastic, Donald. Thank you so much for that. That was excellent stuff. So a lot of stuff to get across in a very short period of time. We have had a number of questions come in, both from the Zoom webinar, but also on our Restream service with LinkedIn Live and YouTube. So I'll start there. Martin and Yvonne both asked similar questions. What Martin's was, can you share the optical illusion thing? I think you just answered that. And the other one was, are the examples available? So yes, the examples are available on our showcase web page, which Donald had up on the screen. Julie has asked, do my viewers need any other software?
So no, the viewers, your viewers need PowerPoint if they're viewing it in PowerPoint. So yes, so for viewing in PowerPoint, because it's the PowerPoint we're talking about today, so no, they just need a version of PowerPoint. And indeed, they can use pretty much any version of PowerPoint. It can be the iPad version, the online version, the desktop version for Windows, and I think going all the way back to 2013 or something, PowerPoint 2013. So yeah, pretty much any version of PowerPoint can add the add-in and display the Squirrel content.
Great. Nikki's asked, how many Excel functions do you support?
So it's about 400. So I think Excel has like 700 or so, but a lot of those are like sort of strange engineering sort of type things. We support about just over 400 Excel functions, and adding more all the time. But it's very unusual that we find someone who's got something that we don't currently support.
So Richard has asked a couple of questions via the Restream. What PowerPoint versions do you support?
Yes, as I just said, pretty much all of them.
Yeah.
And
Great.
so, yeah.
Fantastic. And what plans have PowerPoint integration?
So the Squirrel comes in 3 plans. One is presenter, one is creator, and one is builder, and they all come with PowerPoint capabilities. You can do more with creator and present and builder. For example, in creator, you can also share links to your creations as well as embed them in PowerPoint. But the presenter version is the version aimed just at PowerPoint, but all including Creator and Builder, all will allow you to do this.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. We've hit the half past the hour, so it is time to wrap up. Thank you all very much for joining us today, wherever you're viewing, whether it's here on Zoom webinar or one of our Restream services. If your question hasn't been answered today, we will make sure we have a list of them here. We'll get back to you all. If you did register via Zoom webinar, you will be receiving a recording of this live event in your inbox shortly. And if you're viewing by one of our Restream options, the recording will be available on the streaming service for a period of time. Thank you all very much. I wish you a good rest of the day, and thank you, Donald, once again for all your time.
No problem. Thank you.